everyone, and welcome back to my channel and to True Crime Spotlight. Today we're taking a look at a more recent case that received nationwide attention here in Australia: the stalking, rape and murder of Eurydice Dixon. This case held a spotlight in Australia because of the violent nature of the attack in Melbourne's Princes Park. It led to many vigils, a lot of media attention, as well as a speech in Parliament about Australia's need to educate men on violence against women. In today's video, we will take a look at the terrifying events leading up to her death and the aftermath, whilst also honouring Eurydice as the bright spark she was. Eurydice Dixon, born on the 10th of November 1995, was a comedian and actress. In 2008, she's 22 years old and performing regularly in comedy venues in Melbourne, as well as studying drama at Deakin University. In 2018, Eurydice makes her debut at the Melbourne Comedy Festival with her solo show, At Home, I Feel Like a Tourist. During this time, she is a regular performer at the Highlander Bar. She gigs in many venues around Melbourne, whilst also performing with the Moorland Theatre Company. This talented young woman was just starting out on a path that she had dreamed of before tragedy struck. On Tuesday nights at Highlander Bar in Melbourne, they would hold a free comedy night, and Eurydice often performed there. On Tuesday, June 12th, Eurydice did just that, and afterwards shared a drink with her boyfriend, Tony Magnuson. The two don't live together and have been dating for several months at the time of this horrific crime. Around 10:30 p.m, Tony and Eurydice leave the Highlander Bar. They go to McDonald's and Tony buys Eurydice a protein bar from Woolworths. It is believed that after Eurydice and Tony say goodbye at Flinders Street Station, Tony boards a tram going southbound and Eurydice decides to walk home and begins walking north along Swanston Street. Jaymes Todd, who is 19 at the time, is a young man who is diagnosed with autism. He had spent the afternoon of the 12th smoking cannabis and drinking alcohol with friends. He has fantasies about controlling women, raping them and killing them. In the early hours of June 13th, Todd will carry out his fantasy. For over an hour, over 5 kilometres, 3 miles, Eurydice Dixon is stalked and watched by Jaymes Todd. All of this is captured on CCTV footage. He is always behind her, eyes fixed, whilst thinking of his fantasies. He follows her, making sure that he is 15 to 20 seconds behind her so she doesn't notice him. He follows her, but stops occasionally to roll a cigarette as to not alarm her. He follows her whilst she is totally unaware. She's focused on getting to the home she shared with her father and her brother, home after another comedy gig. Her phone is in her hand, something most young women do now on their walk home, so that they are prepared to call police in case something happens. But Eurydice Dixon's last interaction on her phone isn't to police. It's to tell her boyfriend Tony that she's almost home. She texts him saying, I'm nearly home, how about you? She will never be heard from again. In the early hours of Wednesday, June 13th, Eurydice Dixon, who is almost home, is walking across the soccer field at Princes Park. She always does this with her shoes off, feeling the grass between her toes. It is a park that is known to all in the area, a place where many youngsters played sports. It's home to a football stadium, a children's playground and several sports facilities. As Eurydice crosses the field, Jaymes Todd makes his move. He approaches her from behind and pushes her to the ground. Eurydice fights back whilst Todd sits on her chest. She leaves several scratches on Todd's face whilst he is tearing at her clothes. He then rapes her. He rapes her whilst he has one hand around her throat. He rapes her whilst she is gasping for breath. He rapes her digitally. He rapes her for a second time, but cannot seem to stay erect. After stalking, then raping Eurydice, Todd chokes her for up to 10 minutes, crushing her windpipe. Eurydice Dixon is murdered. She's less than 1 kilometre, half a mile, from her home. Todd takes Eurydice's phone and goes through it. He uses the camera as a mirror to check the scratches on his face. He reportedly also defecates on a track near the park. He finds a bench at Royal Park Station and falls asleep. At 2:50 a.m, a passerby sees Dixon's body and calls for an ambulance whilst conducting CPR. She is unable to be revived. Police arrive and begin processing the area as a crime scene. The area is cordoned off. At this time, Todd wakes up and attempts to go back to the area, but he is refused by police. Todd then eats a pie and has a coffee before returning home. Later it is revealed that Todd's internet history has a shocking past. He had searched several things such as rape, strangulation, and snuff material. In fact, right after he returns home from stalking, raping, and murdering Eurydice, he searches the internet for rape porn and stories on Eurydice's death. He searches brutal rape, choking till death, strangled, forced videos. Todd's day then goes on as normal. He goes to class and hangs out in the city with his mates before returning home. That night, family and friends call as his face is all over their TV. CCTV footage has been released of the man who was stalking Eurydice Dixon. Todd calls police to tell him that it is him on the footage, but he wasn't involved in any murder. Police still ask him to come to the station. During the interview that police conduct, Todd denies any allegations that are being made, until police tell him that there was DNA at the scene that they are going to compare to his DNA. Todd responds, "Don't worry about the DNA, I did it. I'll tell you everything." Jaymes Todd has just confessed to the rape and murder of Eurydice Dixon. He is charged with those offences. In the spot where Eurydice Dixon was raped and murdered, mourners, strangers, begin placing flowers as a shrine for her. On June 17th, a day before a planned vigil at the site was to take place, the flower shrine was vandalised. The man who was later charged with criminal damage, offensive behaviour and making offensive graffiti says he has no regrets over defacing the shrine. As soon as it is seen, the community fights back and council workers cover the image before firefighters use a high-pressure hose to remove the symbol. Security in the area is stepped up to monitor. June 18th, in Parliament during question time, Adam Bant, the member for Melbourne, asks the Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull if he will support an increase in efforts to change men's behaviour. Let's take a look at the exchange.
The member for Melbourne has the call.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions to the Prime Minister. People in Melbourne are grieving at the death of Eurydice Dixon. Melbourne's full of strong, funny women like Eurydice. This has hit us hard. Thousands of people will be gathering at Princes Park and around the country to remember Eurydice. Many people are in mourning, many are angry, and many are. Prime Minister, do you agree that whatever we're collectively doing as a country now to change men's behaviour, we need to do more? And will you support increasing efforts to change men's behaviour so that everyone in this country is safe?
The member, the Prime Minister has the call.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable member for that question. Our hearts go out to Eurydice's family, prayers, sympathy, love with them. They grieve her loss. Women must be safe everywhere. The street, walking through a park, their homes, work. We need to ensure that we have a culture of respect for women. Not all disrespect of women ends up in violence against women, but that's where all violence against women begins. So ensuring that start from the very start, ensuring that our sons and grandsons respect the women in their lives, vitally important. All as parents and grandparents have a duty to do that. And also we have a very profound duty to ensure that our public places, our streets, our parks are safe places in which to work and walk. I know we are all united, not a partisan issue. But, you know, when we sit down with states and local government and work through our city plans and city deals, a key part of that is ensuring that we have an environment that is safe. And as my wife Lucy often says in her capacity as Chief Commissioner, the Greater Sydney Commission, a measure of the livability of a city is whether women are safe to walk wherever. And that has got to be another vital priority. This is a heartbreaking tragedy. But what we must do as we grieve is ensure that we change the hearts of men to respect women. We start with the youngest men, little boys, our sons and grandsons, which make sure that they respect their mothers and their sisters and all the women in their lives. As grown men, we must lead by example and treat women with respect, and we must ensure that our cities, our towns, our country, everywhere is safe for every Australian to walk and work, whether it's a park, whether it's a workplace, whether it is in their own home. That is our commitment. Thank the honourable member for the question. I believe, Mr Speaker, that I speak for every honourable member saying we must never, ever, ever tolerate violence against women. Eurydice Dixon, mourn the loss, grieve with her family. We say never again.
That same day, 5 days after Eurydice's murder, a vigil is held in Princes Park where she was murdered. In fact, vigils are held nationwide for Eurydice and for the other women murdered by men. In Canberra, Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull and Opposition Leader Bill Shorten light candles side by side in an act of bipartisan solidarity. Over 10,000 attend the vigil in Princes Park. It is silent for 20 minutes as everyone reflects by candlelight before a choir sings Leonard Cohen's Alleluia. On November 8, 2018, Jaymes Todd pleads guilty to his crimes. He is remanded in court until sentencing. On August 15, 2019, Todd's plea hearing begins and victim impact statements are read in court. Todd is present for these. The plea hearing lasts 2 days. On the first day, Polly Cotton, Eurydice's sister, says, "I want to see her, hear her, be with her, have coffee with her, but because she was murdered, I will never see her again. I wish regularly over the course of my day that I could have saved her. I suffer PTSD. Any mention of the word rape or murder, I freeze up in terror. Sadly, the strongest emotion I feel is anger. I am seething in anger. My rage is irrational. This has shaken and destroyed my family." Jaymes Todd weeps as Polly speaks. This is the first time we have seen any emotion from him. Eurydice's boyfriend Tony is also suffering PTSD as a result of this horrific crime. Tony states in court, "I am suffering from constant insomnia, throwbacks and flashbacks. When I do fall asleep, I wake up to the sound of a scream. I will never look at the human race the same way again." During court proceedings, a phone conversation that is had by Todd and his father is revealed. In the phone conversation, Todd says that he was disappointed with how the crime took place. He confesses that he had fantasized about rape before, and that after the attack he felt like shit and hoped it would be better next time. On Monday, September 2nd, 2019, Jaymes Todd is sentenced to life in prison. This means Todd will serve a minimum of 35 years in jail. He would be 55 if he was released. When addressing this matter, Justice Kay stated, "In respect of the non-parole period that I will set for you, it is important for you to understand, and indeed for all of those who are here to listen or who will later read these reasons for sentence to understand, that you will not walk free from prison on completion of that period." Jaymes Todd was diagnosed as a sexual sadist whilst in jail, and this is used as a mitigating factor in deciding his sentence. Todd may be eligible for parole, but this doesn't mean he will get it. Only time will tell. After Jaymes Todd's sentencing, Eurydice's father, Jayme Dixon, speaks out. Let's listen to what he said.
Comment on it now. I am very glad there's a killer off the streets. What I'd wish for Jaymes Todd, and what I believe Eurydice would wish, is that he gets better and comes to a full realisation, and realises what he's done. I extend my sympathy, my sincere sympathy for those who love him. It's a terrible tragedy all round. Eurydice herself should be remembered, as her friends will remember her for her wit and her courage, and for her kindness, not for her death. That's all, folks, and thanks to the community for their support, and that's it. Thank you very much.
In a twist that many were shocked by, it has just been announced that Jaymes Todd is appealing his 35-year sentence. Although Todd handed himself into police, confessed, and pled guilty, he is now saying that the sentence he received is too harsh. On October 2nd, the appeal was filed by Todd's lawyers. Herald Sun reported that the lawyers said, "He was a young offender who had no prior convictions. His upbringing has been characterised by dysfunction, chaos, filth, squalor, isolation, and neglect." It was heard during the sentencing phase in August that Todd is a significant risk to re-offend due to his sexual sadism disorder. Justice Kay even stated that Todd had very limited prospects of rehabilitation. I will update you in the future when more information comes to light. Eurydice was a talented, incredible young woman who was taken far too soon. I want to end today's video with a clip of Eurydice at her last comedy gig. This video is thanks to Paula Ferrari.
Bit of a tendency to worry a lot about things that I shouldn't worry about. Sometimes I worry I'm going to end up in a slave society. You know, just girly things. Just normal shit, right? You worry. But we shouldn't. We really shouldn't. It's not going to happen for ages. We'll all be dead by then. It's not going to happen till the robots take over. But I can't stop worrying. In my mind, I'm like, shit. Trying to be more optimistic. I'm like, slave society, that means no one has any rights. We'll finally have gender equality. Equally shit. Still equal. The third wave feminists will be happy, won't they? They keep telling everybody, that's all we want! Is it? Not all I want! That's why I'm a feminist, and not an equitist. I have very specific things I want my equality to include. Positive equality, not negative equality. Of course, it would be positive for the robots, wouldn't they? That's positive equality. Alright, that's all I wanted to try, thanks.
Thank you so much for watching this week's True Crime Spotlight on Eurydice Dixon. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Also, if there are any other cases you'd like me to cover, please let me know. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, bye for now.